SDVoE Live, Unplugged. That's what we're doing today. Very special episode. I'll just give you a little behind the scenes, as you're quite behind the scenes right now. At about 5 minutes before the hour, vmixcall.com, on which the entire show depends, went down. So we've been scrambling for the last 15 minutes to find a solution. And here it is, because we want to bring you something. We thank you, our loyal audience, for being here with us, for sticking it out for 6 or 7 minutes of nothing. And here we are. So we have a very special episode today. Our guest, Alexis La Broi, joining us a little early. Normally we'd bring the guest in later, but she's here with us already, and that's great. We're going to talk about how you can attract and retain young talent in AV, right? AV doesn't really have much of a formalized farm system, if you will, right? The way some other industries have kind of formal structures for internships and entry-level careers and a path that grows from there. So does AV need that? And if so, how can we build it? That's what we're going to talk about with Alexis. But I also want to mention that, we're probably going to scrap the after show today. We're just going to do the interview. We're going to take your questions all live and in order. I do want to welcome those of you who I pray are watching us on the Rave launch platform right now. I believe that we're plugged into all of our channels for this. So special welcome to you. We formed a partnership for season 2 with Rave so that all of this is pushed out on the launch platform. And I welcome those of you who are watching it there. So we do have some news to cover, and I think we should go ahead and jump straight to that, Matt, if you're ready. Everybody note that, again, I'm picturing that you're seeing all the normal channels. So down below us on the screen, you'll find links to some of the news articles that we're about to talk about. You'll find links to some of the relevant courses that Matt will mention in a few minutes. So be sure to check those out during and especially after the show, when you can dive in and look to some of that content. So with that, Matt, why don't we, tell everybody, I already mentioned it. You can reach us at live@sdvoe.org. I appreciate I've got about a dozen emails now saying we can hear you. Someone says my audio is very faint. I don't know if you studio guys hear that and can deal with that. I'll try to speak up, but we're doing what we can. Sit closer or up your mic. I can't control anything here, so it's all in the studio. Guys, they can't hear me very well. Matt, let's talk about the news. The first article, Matt, why don't you tell us about what it was?
Absolutely. So the news really centers today on new talent coming into the industry. So the first news article was exactly that. And it really sort of discussed, we've got, as we're all coming out of lockdown now, we've got lots of new talent, we have for a while, but guys who are keen to get into the industry. What does that look like? Beforehand, somebody went for a job, a very specific job, and people came to the company and they grew their skills within the company. But now we are in a new shift. We've got new talent coming into the industry. We've got people with existing new skills, which perhaps are the people who are already in that business and already in the industry are somewhat not lacking, but threadbare, shall we say. So it's that shift between how do we bring new talent into the business and keep them there, stimulate them, give them the skills they need to grow within that business and that organization, as well as the industry itself. When you go for an interview for a job, it's kind of shifting now. It's not just here's my job description. You ask me a bunch of questions and I'll answer them and you decide whether I've got a job or not. That's all kind of shifting. It's almost really now they're interviewing us. What can you bring to the table for me as a keen, educated guy who needs to grow not just in the industry but also help to grow this business. So it's not enough. And this kind of strikes a real chord with me, because as the guy looking after education within SDVoE, education is king. How are we going to? Somebody comes in with skills already, but we need to check those skills. We need to make sure that they are applying those skills in the correct way. It's that cross section between academia and vocation. How do those skills get applied in a business world? And personally, I think there's a lot of business knowledge that needs to be gathered as well for new people coming in. And organisations and owners of organisations have got to be also quite cognitive and quite aware of the fact that there's a work-life balance needs to be aligned here as well. So some really interesting points made on this article. Justin, what did you take from it?
You know, one of the key takeaways for me was the idea of a well thought out career progression being a very important component of the business. We'll talk about the next article, the cost of turnover, and that's why retainment is so important. But there was a comment made in the article about, you know, a number one reason that people cite for wanting to leave a job is they want more money. But the author kind of turned it around and said, what they really want is for you to show me how to make more money, right? Nobody with any sense in their head expects, you know, oh, just give me more money just because. But if the employee has a path that they can see how they can grow, how they can gain responsibility, and therefore become more valuable and worth more money, ultimately, I think that's what people are seeking, is that kind of growth path. So, you know, it's about that, but it's broadly about knowing your people and their motivations. And I think that's what will help keep the best people around you. Alexis, we don't usually have our guest at this point. You're only hearing us. Maybe you didn't see the article yet, but do you have any ideas and thoughts around the ways to make sure your employees are engaged and retained?
Yeah, I do actually. I think a lot of it has to do with onboarding for those new employees. I think it has to do with corporate culture. I've started at a company and basically they didn't do any onboarding. They didn't do any training. It was just like, okay, here you go. You're a salesperson, get started. And it's like, okay, how do I start? Where do I go? Oh, just talk to this person, there was no defined structure. There was no defined plan for onboarding. And I think that, just think about it. You come into a company and on one hand, you have a structured plan. This is what week 1 looks like. This is what week 2 looks like. This is what week 3 looks like. These are your goals in 30, 60, 90 days. And, versus coming into a company where you're kind of just like, okay, I'm going to pair you up with this person, go. That's two different that's two different ways of thinking, and one is a good and right way of thinking. One is a bad and wrong way of thinking, and the people who do that bad and wrong way of thinking are trying to figure out all the time. I brought these people in. How come they're leaving? Well, they have no plan. They have no structure. Why would they stay?
Yeah. Wow. There you go. Matt,
That's my opinion.
I appreciate it. Matt, what's our second topic?
Yeah. So really, I had a great segue prepared pre VMix crash. The thing to be aware of course, be aware for everybody is poachers. There's a lot of people keeping their eye out for talent. And why not? There's a lot of talent out there. So the second topic that we looked at was the cost of employee turnover. It can rise, it can get out of hand if we're not careful. And what factors are there? What does that? What are those costs? What are those costs made up of? Investing in employees in the first place is expensive, but you've got to be as an employer. Certainly as a smaller business, it's a big step because there's a lot of costs sometimes hidden that people might not be aware of. Leaders in a business mustn't get too myopic about that cost to the business and forget or negate the fact that employee or those employees need to have a progression. They need to invest in the employee redevelopment. So it's quite a tricky thing here. We've got these new people coming in, new talent coming in. How much is it going to cost me? But what's the output? What does that bring to my business? And how can I reward those employees? What does that look like? And if suddenly those people were to leave, I've got to do that whole thing again. And that's quite a frightening thought, really. I've skilled you up and now you've gone off to somebody else. Managing poor performance is one thing, but I don't think we're here to discuss that at the moment. I think it's more about making sure that the employee really comes first. And again, it's down to knowledge and growing that knowledge base to suit that employee and the skills that employee has, but also to help to grow the business. That was my take from it. What about yourself, Justin?
Yeah, and the costs here, which was really the focus of this article, are incredible. This speaks to the value of retaining your employees, right? One of the studies cited talked about an estimated 1/3 of an annual salary is the cost of just the hard cost of replacing an employee. Advertising for a new job, using a recruiter, bringing them on board, and all of that process, right? So if they're a $60,000 employee, it's going to cost you $20,000 just to find a new one after they leave. But then another study cited in the article talked about some of the softer costs, right, including the loss of productivity. Meaning, a new employee might be a very talented person, but they don't know your business from the inside yet. And it's going to take some months, some years even, before they might regain the level of productivity of someone who left. And that study cited over 200% of annual salary as the total cost to replace a skilled employee, right? So if you've got a service technician making $90,000 a year, it might cost you $190,000 in lost productivity and other costs to replace them. And one very interesting sort of additional cost that the article talked about is morale, right? The more people are voluntarily leaving your business, the more the people still there are saying, well, hey, why did Fred just take off? Why did Alicia just leave? Like, is there something I should know? And suddenly they're thinking about leaving. So there's kind of a potential snowball effect. And in the labor market we're in today, where things are really tight, a lot of businesses are struggling to find people. Keeping your people happy is very important. I'll say I'm personally going through a little bit of this right now. I can share with you all that Janet Mady, who's been a very talented and I would have said irreplaceable, and now I hope that's not true, part of the SDVoE Alliance, she's retiring in the very near term, just the next couple of weeks here. And we're going to miss Janet very dearly because of so much she does for our marketing and communication strategies. But I've had to go through the pain of, oh my goodness, how do I replace someone like that? And it's going to cost some money, and it's going to cost some heartache and some stress. And I'm going to have to try and do all those things Alexis told me in the last segment about making sure I'm onboarding the new person in the right way. So let's hope I can do a good job of that. Alexis, any thoughts here? Again, we're throwing articles and ideas at you that if you log into the Academy and click down below, you'll find them. But what do you think? Is it, I mean, how do I even ask the question, right? Is it a good thing if people leave your business? I think I know the answer to that, but what are your thoughts?
Well, no, it's not a good thing when people leave, but I think it's a little bit of introspection that has to be done on the part of the employers before hiring those people, and figuring out, do an exit interview with those folks and see exactly what it is. Hopefully they tell you honestly why they are leaving, and it will help stave off some of the other people from leaving, because there is this whole thing, when one person leaves and the other people are looking around like, oh, wait a minute, maybe it's time for me to go too. But I wonder what you think about this. I mean, there are so many people who are looking for positions right now, but and so many companies that are hiring, but I keep seeing that a lot of folks that I know who are looking for positions, they've had 1, 2, 3, 4 interviews. They've had a panel interview. Then they had an interview with the CEO. Then they had an interview with all these other people. They're trying their best to make sure that it's a right fit with the organization, but they're also kind of, shoving people away with the number of interviews and the number of, work on this business plan for us. And, yes, you uploaded your resume, but I want you to fill out another thing of all your work history. Those things turn people off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you think about that? I wonder why there are so many people that are looking, but they throw up so many roadblocks and barriers for hiring.
I've had a little of this debate internally. I mentioned we've been hiring at SDVoE, and the new Janet starts next Monday or so. So we've successfully found the right person and brought them on board. I'll introduce you all when she's formally here, but we had some internal discussions just about interviewing, right? Which is its own kind of new world right now. We did all of our interviews on Zoom rather than live and in person. And in fact, this job is going to be a lot of a telework kind of job. And I shared some of my experience. My background is very technical in real design engineering jobs, even outside of AV. And it was normal for me to spend a whole day at a company interviewing, usually one-on-one with 3, 4, or even 5 individuals before the end of the day, and they say, okay, thanks, you can go now. Of course, if the first 2 people don't like you, you tend to lunchtime, you don't stick around all day. But then I spoke to some of the rest of my team who have a much less technical kind of background, and I was saying, oh, let's schedule 2 hours to interview a new marketing coordinator, and they were looking at me like, why do we need 2 hours? So yeah, it seems like there's a wide variation in company and in maybe in the style of the position and the style of the hiring manager for how people make it through the sort of interview and the other related processes to that. I think your point is very interesting. To hear a business, I hear lots of businesses around me complaining about not being able to find people. I don't necessarily mean an AV, I just mean locally, where I live, restaurants need people, and the hardware store needs people, and they just can't. If that's the environment you're in, and you're making it hard for people to interview and be interested in your company, then I think you're making a really critical mistake. Matt talked 10 minutes ago about the idea that in this labor market we're in, the candidates are interviewing the employer as much as the other way around. And if that's the foot you're putting forward, if you're making them jump through unnecessary hoops, what does that say about the hoops you're going to make them jump through when they have a career with you? And I think people are going to get that message, and you're going to continue to struggle to find people if that's how you approach things.
I think there's an element as well of it's not just new people coming in, it's how a business evolves and promotes people within it, and there's always it's always important to recognise that you need to try and avoid promoting somebody into their first level of incompetence, taking somebody who is ready to grow and ready to become climb the ladder within a business, but is that person, what happens if that person goes from being a brilliant employee, doing a great job in their existing role, and we get it wrong when we promote them, and it goes wrong for them? We've already backfilled their old job. We can't just reverse press undo, and there's that consideration too. How does that make the business? What's the impact on the business? But how does it make everybody feel within it? It's making sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and is this the right move? And that has to be thought of. It's not just new people coming into the business.
Right. Well, I think we've covered that. I think we should move on. Those are some interesting articles. Again, look below, click and read the whole things, because there's another article I want to talk to you guys about. As I was building up the guest schedule for season 2 of SDVoE Live, which we're now enjoying, I realized that I'd made the mistake last season of inviting all of my friends to be on the show, and I only have like 11 friends, so that was everybody. And I said, oh my goodness, who am I going to have on the show this season? So I had to go start finding people. This is how Alexis and I met. I was just reading around, looking around, and I found an article that Alexis posted to Rave, actually, called "Create Opportunities for Young People to Enter the AV Industry." And I read it, and I said, here's a person with an interesting idea and something to say. I'm going to meet her, and let's talk, see if we can get her on the show. So Alexis, welcome.
That's what happened. It's earth shaking. Yes, absolutely.
You broke the internet.
I broke the internet today. Wow. I didn't know that was going to happen. That wasn't planned.
So talk to me about creating opportunities for young people. Why? What do we need to do?
Well, I think first of all, we need to realize that there is a problem. We are going to have a problem in a few short years with not having enough people to leave our companies, to leave our industry, to bring life and more innovation into what it is that we do. And we first have to recognize that there is an issue, and there is an issue. I think COVID has exacerbated that issue a lot. And we just have to acknowledge that there's an issue, and what are we going to do to solve this challenge? And for me, I have been very interested over the past many years in deliberately bringing young people and diverse people into the industry. most of the people, I'm in my late 40s, and most of the people that I talk to found their way into the audiovisual industry by mistake. They were a musician, they needed to get off the road. I've heard that story so many times.
Yeah.
So we need to find a pathway for people to come into our industry in a more deliberate way. And that's what that's my passion in the industry, is figuring out those ways and bringing attention to it and getting other people on board and getting them on the bandwagon to help me do it.
So you're talking about a problem that's coming, and just want to make sure that I understand what you mean and that the audience does. We're talking about, as those of us who are already in the industry gain, I'll say it a nice way, gain even more experience until we're finally so experienced that we decide to retire. The question is, who's left, running the show in AV, and are we building up enough of a young talent pool that those kids, graduating college today or entering the workforce, have grown up to be the managers, the leaders, the executives in their 40s and 50s, a couple of decades from now. That's fundamentally the issue you're worried about. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. How do we find those folks? Where do we look for those folks? How we need to actively look for those folks. And we need to do succession planning. And I don't see enough of that being done. I just see a lot of people working. And we need their expertise and we need them to be in the industry. But when they leave, they take all that information and knowledge with them and they haven't passed it on to the next people yet.
Wow. Okay. So you mentioned succession planning. That's interesting. What does a good succession plan look like? What does it include? And I guess what I'm really trying to drive at is, how do we make sure and not lose all that knowledge when someone leaves the industry?
Well, I think that mentoring can do a lot with passing on that knowledge and information, and mentoring is a two-way street. I think that mentoring for an older person or for a more senior person in your organization to teach and lead and help inform and mentor a younger person or a newer person in your organization. I think that it helps not only the senior leader, but it also helps the junior person, right? It helps the junior person because that information and organizational knowledge and maybe industry knowledge is passed on to the next person. But also it helps the senior leader because it helps them with their professional development. They learn how to teach, they learn how to lead, and they probably already know how to do these things, but maybe they don't have the opportunity to do it as much because they're in their grind, they're doing their day to day. They're getting their work done, right? So, yeah.
Now, when you and I spoke before the show, you talked about mentorship in combination with sponsorship, which you told me is something different, but maybe related. Can you talk about that? What's the difference and how do they relate?
Sure. Well, mentorship is person to person. It's direct guidance. It's advice. It is coaching from one person to another, right? And so, in the example that I mentioned, it could be a junior person being mentored by a senior person, right? And it can also be peer to peer. The AVIXA Women's Council has these groups for women in the council called the Career Empowerment Groups. And what they do in those groups is get together, over how many weeks, once a week or every other week. And it's just a very cool peer-to-peer mentoring and coaching. And
okay.
I need to ask for a raise. What do you think I should do? And so you get guidance from the people that are in that group. So it could be junior to senior, or it could be peer-to-peer. And then sponsoring is a little bit different from mentorship, because sponsoring is not direct. It's more when the person is not in the room, that your sponsor is a person who is speaking on your behalf. They're amplifying you, they are boosting you, they are supporting you in a way that you may not even know they're doing, to help
Absolutely.
you get into that next role, or to help you get into the right projects that are going to be career boosting for that
Hmm.
person. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's a little bit about kind of what to do with people once they're in the industry. How do we bring people in the first place? How do we make sure that young person, looking to start a career, in the first place, understands that AV is a career? I think in my own experience talking to people, I've heard the same stories as you, of people that kind of get into the industry sideways.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of those people may have started their career wherever it was, not even understanding that AV is a career. So
Right,
A, how do we make them aware that it is? And then
right.
B, how do we show them that not only does it exist, but it's attractive?
Well, I think that we have to talk to young people, and we can talk to Girl Scout, Boy Scout troops, because so many people are involved in that in their communities that work in the audiovisual industry. We can talk to schools. We can talk to bring young people that to industry events, or give if it's virtual, just make sure that they know about it at this point.
Hmm.
um, we can one of the things that I do is I talk to young people who are in a group called Empower. It's an IT CompTIA IT certification training. I think it's 17 weeks, and the last 7 or 8 weeks are internship. But they train the students in the cohort, the trainees, to be able to successfully pass all the different CompTIA certifications up to A+. So
Okay.
yeah, I talked to them a couple times in each one of the cohorts, and just talk about elevator speeches. We do a women in technology panel every cohort. So just talking to people, finding people to talk to about what it is that we do.
Maybe I need to work on my elevator pitch. When someone, in the world outside the industry asks me what I do, I tell them, how sometimes you walk in like a conference room and you can hook your laptop up and it shows on the TV, and they say, yeah. I say, well, I sell the most expensive way in the world to do that.
Pretty funny. I mean, that's a conversation starter. I mean, that's really
That's
all
it.
you need.
That's it. Then you can go from there. You got
Yes.
it.
Uh-huh.
So we talked about attracting people at a macro level. Let's focus the microscope and talk about, how do you actually, if you're the business, how do you go and find people? How do you seek them out? Where should you be looking? Where are they looking? Is that the right place?
Yeah. So I think that each person in an organization can kind of look in their community. If it's thinking about ways to remove barriers to entry into the AV industry, right? So thinking about, what do you need to come into this organization? How did you come into the organization? Did you have a college degree when you came into the organization, or did you learn so much on the job? Do you need a college graduate? Do you need someone with a master's to be able to do the job? Those are some of the things that we need to think about organizationally, for people to bring people in. Are there vocational schools? Like Lincoln Tech is around, and I know they have CJ has the program in the New York area, where he's teaching students about the audiovisual industry.
Mhm.
Here in the Baltimore area, Sheffield Institute has students, and every now and then we're able to talk to those students, or bring them into a local trade show. A couple years ago, before COVID, we brought them to Simcoe, and they were able to post their resumes on the board, and a couple people were able to get jobs. So
Mhm.
being open to things like that, vocational schools, junior colleges, going into the four-year universities, going to HBCUs, looking at organizations like National Society of Black Engineers, There is Hispanic Society of Professional Engineers. There's all different organizations that I think that our community is not tapping, that have great people. And we just need to think outside of the box a little bit to find some great people, to new young people, diverse people to bring into the industry.
Let's make it concrete for the audience, right? If somebody out there is watching and saying, wow, this sounds great, this is what we got to do. I'm not the hiring manager, I'm not the big executive. You know, what are the small concrete things we can do? I know your article mentioned something, and here's where honestly I rely on the studio graphics I don't have. Ignite, was that the name of it?
Yeah.
That was an organization. That seemed like something that anybody watching could get involved with if they wanted to. What are those concrete things that anybody could help with?
So the Ignite program is through NSCA, Systems Contractors Association. And so one of the things that I mentioned about Ignite that I really liked that they did is they had a career pathways, and it's on their website, on the Ignite website. But it's it's for a young person, right? Or for somebody new coming into the AV industry. But this is what this person's career path looked like. You know, they started here, they started there, they started there, they started there, and now they're here. You know, so that is something concrete that a person could take a look at, get involved with Ignite. With NSCA and Ignite. You can also reach out to resources at AVIXA. The AVIXA Foundation is their main goal is workforce development and finding people for our industry. So if you don't know, where to start, Joseph Valerio is the program manager for the AVIXA Foundation and for that work. And he is constantly adding schools that they're doing AV curriculum at, and focusing on those young people to let them know that we're here. I think the biggest barrier is that they don't know we're here, right? Yeah. So how do we just need to do a better job of making sure that people know that we're here. The engineers, the gamers, the marketing folks, the sales folks, they just don't know we're here. So we have to do a better job.
You think we could put up some digital signage or something? I mean, come on.
We could do something. I mean, can we get something in Times Square? Can we?
Is this not what we do? Does anybody have a big projector? Does anybody in the house have a big projector? Come on.
I know, right? That's exactly what I mean. Just amplifying it and letting people know we're here.
Yeah, that's great. The last question I wanted to touch on, and thanks to Bill in the audience for asking this. We talked before about retaining employees when we were looking at the news section, how important that is. I wonder if you see any key differences when it comes to how to if you're out there, we're successfully hiring these young people and bringing them into our business, into our industry. Is there a difference in how we need to retain them as compared to someone more experienced, and what it is that might drive them to stay or leave?
Right. Well, I think younger people have been through some stuff, right? I mean, they have, just COVID in and of itself is, it's kind of changed probably a lot of career paths. So I think we need to be, more sensitive to some of the younger people that are coming in. I think we need to think about mental health. I think that we need to think about helping them plan a career path in each one of these organizations. This is what your career path could potentially look like if you come on board with our company. Here are some people that I want you to talk to. I'm the hiring manager. I don't want you to just talk to me. I want you to talk to a couple other people who are here in the organization so you can hear about their career path. Young people, they want to see what their future might look like. They want to see what growth is available for them. They don't want to be in a position where they're going to stay in that position forever and they'll never grow. That's why they leave. So, if there's somebody who, can show them what that path might look like, can put them on projects that are, meaningful to them, then maybe they'll stick around. Maybe they'll have incentive and some reasons to stick around.
That makes sense. Well, Alexis, thank you. This has been great. Speaking of stick around, you stick around for just another minute. We'll wrap this up. But first, Matt, we had a couple of things we wanted to show people that are related. I wanted to highlight, as I see it, SDVoE trying to do our part. The SDVoE Academy is all about training people around AV over IP and this technology that underlies SDVoE. And that's a great resource, I think, for somebody new to the industry, whether they're young or experienced. So that's what we try to do. Matt, there's a couple of specific related courses you wanted to talk about here.
Yes, there are. Apologies if I'm a little bit quieter. I've moved things around here so you can hear us all a bit better. Yes, that's SDVoE Certified Design Partner. It's there. It's on the Academy. It's a really valuable certification. Certainly, you know, if you're new to AV or AV over IP, this certification gives you the confidence, and I think that's a really important point, certainly for guys coming in who hear lots of terminology, lots of statements, lots of things that we talk about specifically within the industry. Check out the Certified Design Partner. There's a resource link down here, really valuable, and it's the core, it's the starting block. And from there, you know, you'll see that you can spread your wings a bit within the Academy. There's loads of bolt-on courses for that really just help you with the vanilla information, the vanilla knowledge that you really do need. So Certified Design Partner, check it out. As soon as we finished here, if you've not done it already, go check out that course track. And you know, esports, okay, is a big thing. You know, you kids are into esports, right? So check out our esports, SDVoE and esports course, which is all about how SDVoE technology fits within this new global phenomenon, and actually how far advanced SDVoE technology is compared to others that really support and help the esports environment.
I want to give thanks to our sponsor for this episode, Semtech. I want to give thanks to Alexis for joining us and sticking it out as we work through a new edition of SDVoE Live Unplugged. I want to give thanks to everyone who's watching in the audience right now that stuck with us. I actually got some really nice comments in the inbox while we were sitting here saying that Matthias appreciates the hard work we put in, even when things go wrong. So thanks for that. It makes me feel really good about it. And I want to thank especially Paul, George, and Matt for throwing this together with literally 2 minutes notice. I'll tell you guys offline, but you're going to have a very happy client at the end of this and not an upset one. Because it wasn't your fault that it all went wrong. So good for that. Tune in again in 2 weeks, everybody. We'll have Mr. Josiah Way, who is president of the Higher Education Technology Managers Association. We're going to talk about AV Tech in higher ed and what's next for that. It's been a very interesting 2 years for that market segment, no doubt. So what changes has that accelerated? What has it delayed? And where is technology headed in the higher ed space? Tune in 2 weeks. That'll be November the 30th, Tuesday at 1 p.m. We'll be back in the studio, I assure you. And if you missed that show or any of our shows, check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SDVoE Alliance. You can catch all of the back episodes of SDVoE Live. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that, I think we've wrapped up everything. Check out sdvoe.org/live for details on the upcoming shows. Look down below. I should have mentioned explicitly Alexis's article that led us to this episode is linked right down there. So have a read and send her a note. Tell her what you think, or send us a note of your questions. You can find us on social media, on LinkedIn, on Twitter at #SDVoE Live. And I think that is a wrap. I don't guess we're going to have fancy credits roll today. So I'm just going to say thanks again, everybody. Goodbye.